Welcome to Lead for Good, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. This is a show where the audience will meet and get to know top nonprofit leaders. Together, we will take a deep dive into nonprofit leadership, endeavoring to uncover and unpack the most important characteristics, traits, strategies, and actions of successful nonprofit leaders. Through this journey together, we desire to help you, the nonprofit leader, grow your knowledge and capabilities to lead for good. We want you to achieve your full potential as leaders in the sector. So, welcome to the conversation. We're glad you joined us today. Without further delay, let's join our host, Chris Looney, as he interviews yet another extraordinary leader who is truly leading for good. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to Lead for Good, the podcast where we explore leadership, purpose, and the people building stronger organizations and stronger communities through mission-driven work. I'm Chris Looney, and today's conversation is one that will resonate deeply with nonprofit leaders, development professionals, board members, volunteers, and anyone trying to grow something meaningful from humble beginnings. Our guest today is Billy Henry, a leader who has experienced firsthand what it takes to scale a grassroots organization from small community fundraising efforts all the way to producing $1 million auction and building a culture of philanthropy that can sustain and expand mission impact. This conversation is not simply about fundraising tactics. It's about leadership. It's about vision, building trust, mobilizing volunteers, engaging donors, learning how to grow an organization without losing the heart and authenticity that made people care in the first place. Billy, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you on with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you, excited to learn from you, and I have so many questions. So I know we want to dive into those mechanisms and lessons of scaling a grassroots organization. But first, I'd love for our audience to get to know you and understand your leadership journey a little bit better. So for those who may not know your story, tell us a little bit about your professional and leadership journey and what ultimately drew you toward mission-driven work.
Wonderful. Well, happy to. So I am legally blind myself. I've been legally blind since birth. And I founded our organization in 2007 when I was 15 years old. So I founded the organization at the end of my freshman year of high school. And for me, it started out with a desire to be able to participate in powerlifting with my friends. Of course, I didn't think we would be the size of organization we are today. It was just me wanting to participate with my friends, wanting to build a community, wanting to have that same opportunity as our sighted peers, and being able to do that in a way that I knew how. And so I started out with borrowing $50 from a friend in May 2007, and formed our organization at another friend's living room, and we were off and running from there and learning a little bit more every year to this day.
Amazing, amazing. So 2007, so you're coming up on 20 years, which is just awesome. That's so great. And when you look back on your early leadership experiences, what moments or people most influenced the kind of leader you became?
No, that's a great question. I think about, from a leadership lens, leadership has evolved, for me at our organization, throughout the years, and each year presents a different leadership challenge that I look forward to overcoming. But at the early years, it was really leading my other friends who were the same age as I was, who were also blind or low vision like I was, and being able to say, okay, how do we rally, a group of teenagers to, achieve this bold goal, and get people excited, keep people accountable, and really keep everyone focused on the results. So that was some of my early kind of leadership lessons, and a lot of trial and error throughout the process, but always try to learn something from each time. And I would say, as I think about kind of those early years, we had one of our one of our original board members, a guy named John and his wife Chris, who were both on our board, really taught me a lot. They joined our board in 2008, which was certainly a dynamic year. We were about 1 year into our organization. And I would say helped me take the professionalism of the board to the next level. When you're 15 years old and you want to start a nonprofit, you ask anyone who will sign their name on to be a board member, because I needed 3 people. So we started out with very humble beginnings, and both of them taught me a lot about nonprofit work, how to run a board, how to keep people accountable, and how to do the hard work that it takes to grow an organization. So I'm still very close friends to them today, and so grateful for their mentorship and leadership.
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to ask. They sound like they were mentors. So I
Very
was
much so.
wondering who were the mentors, coaches, or role models who played an especially important role in your development, and like kind of what did they teach you that still guides you today?
Yeah, no, I think, both of those that I mentioned, and, also, really there's been so many people. We have one of our longest donors, who owns a local restaurant in Southwest Washington, which is right across the river from Portland, Oregon. Was one of our first donors, and he still is a big supporter today, and taught me work ethic,
Hmm.
how to take care of people, and always to work hard, do the right thing, and stay focused on the mission at hand. So that's also just another mentor and a friend, that's taught me a lot, and I feel very grateful, because it's hard to think of just, there's a few people that I mentioned that really rise up, but I'm very grateful to have learned from so many people. When you're 15 years old, you don't know. At least I didn't know anything. So I've had so many people be so kind to me, give me little nuggets of information, and be so gracious with their time to answer all of my questions. And I've always tried to learn a little bit from each person that I've talked to, and I still do that to this day, so we can keep evolving and growing as an organization.
It's lovely, yeah. And many leaders discover that growth changes them personally as much as it changes the organization. How has scaling uh, organizations or fundraising efforts changed you as a leader?
You know what? What I always tell my team is that every year I have to be a different CEO than I was the prior year. So I have to look at what does the organization need from me? What do we need to drive growth? And then what do I need to change to be able to get there? So to answer your question, I think it's really helped me stay agile, helped me evolve, and helped me be constantly iterating about how we get a little bit better every day. And that starts from the top. As my role as the founder and CEO is to set the tone for the organization, set the culture, and everyone's looking for me to showcase those skills so that everyone else can in the organization as well. So that's been the biggest thing for me, is that constant iteration, constantly getting better, and then constantly pushing the status quo to make our organization stronger and more impactful.
I really love that. I really love the acknowledgement and understanding that you as a leader need to be a different leader every year and try to meet the moment, which is just wonderful and beautiful. What do you think grassroots organizations uniquely teach leaders that maybe larger organizations sometimes overlook?
I think the one theme that comes out to me is humility, and being able to understand what you're good at, understand what you're not good at, and then also knowing that when you're in a grassroots organization, you have to do everything. So I always tell my team, I will never ask them to do something that I'm not willing to or haven't done myself. I've done everything from clean the office because we didn't have janitorial, to own vans when I'm legally blind and can't drive, and get volunteers to drive those vans, to anything in between. So I think You have to have grit, you have to have determination, and you have to figure out a way to get things done with a lack of resources. But what that teaches you as a leader is to say, like, is to really think about the work that people are doing and making sure that it aligns and does it really add value. Because when you're in a grassroots organization, you don't have a lot of capacity, you don't have a lot of resources, you don't have a lot of people, whether that be volunteers or paid employees or consultants, whatever that might be. So you really have to get high return on investment from everything that you do.
Yeah, that's great. Um, and there's a lot of people who don't know your organization who should. Just take a minute and tell us about the organization. What's the name? Where is it located? What's the extent of the impact that you're making currently? That kind of thing.
Absolutely. So, Northwest Association for Blind Athletes, our mission is to provide life-changing opportunities through sports and physical activity to children, youth, adults, and veterans who are blind or visually impaired. But really, what it's about is helping people who are blind and low vision build confidence, gain self-esteem, and really reach their greatest potential in all areas of life. We provide in-person programming across Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. And we provide virtual programming across the entire United States, to California, to New York, to Missouri, to all across the US, and really meet each individual who's blind or visually impaired where they're at, to help them be successful in whatever they want to do. We serve individuals as young as 6 months old that their families recently learned that they're blind and they're learning how to deal with vision loss for the first time, to people that are in their 80s that have had full vision their entire life and have recently lost it. And our mission is very much focused on meeting each person where they are to achieve success in whatever they want to do.
I think that's going to really inspire a lot of people when they hear it, and just marvel at the fact that there are just so many wonderful organizations out there filling the gaps that exist in our society. So, thank you again for the work that you do have done for 20 years and you continue to do. But I want you to take us back to the beginning and tell us a little bit about what the organization and its fundraising efforts looked like in those early days.
Absolutely, I'm happy to. So when we were first starting out, I read a lot of about.com articles about how to fundraise, what to do, what it took. I've always been always kind of been an entrepreneurial type person since I was born. I joke around and say I bought my first suit when I was 6 years old out of the J.C. Penney Big Book, and I never looked back. And that's somewhat accurate
So good.
to be honest. So it's been a fun journey. But what I say that with is we've done a lot of different types of fundraising. I'll kind of break it out into iterations, and I'll kind of be succinct as I look at this. So we started in
Yeah.
May 2007. From 2007 to 2010, we did bake sales. So I figured out a strategic plan that I called it at the time, to do quarterly bake sales in front of a local credit union, and that was enough to pay for our very small powerlifting team that had 6 people at the time, and to be able to go to a competition. Those made between $500 and $700 each. A lot of $1 Rice Krispie bars were sold back in those
Right.
days.
Right.
It was very helpful, because what that taught me, to circle back to business planning and where we are today, is the power of a plan. I said, okay, we need to raise this amount of money. We need to raise this amount of money. Okay, let's back it out into, okay, what do we need to do each quarter? Well, each quarter we needed to do a bake sale. We did it at a different location to try to engage different people and different partners. And many of the things that we used to do back then are things that we're doing now. In 2010, we said, hey, we need to raise more money. So we launched our first auction. That was in February 2010. That event grossed $5,000. And I thought we had reached the pinnacle, because when you're used to
Right.
making $2,000 a year and you gross $5,000 at at an auction, you think you've done well. And I remember those husband and wife board members that I had mentioned to you, that helped us put that event on. They said, I don't think this event's worth doing for $5,000. And I said, no, 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 let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. So over the years, and as we looked to scale, that event grew. I won't go through every year, but I'll show kind of the milestones. We started out at 5,000. Next year it raised 13,000. Year after that, it raised 25,000. Year after that, it jumped up to 70, to 130, to a couple of years later, 250. And now that event just raised $1.1 million in its 17th year. And we're so grateful. We're so grateful for that. And then we've also taken that event and then scaled it. Now we do it in 3 other areas as well, to support our programs in those local communities. But it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of saying, okay, this worked for us, this didn't. And we had to be really creative because, again, I'm legally blind, so I can't drive, and I needed to figure out how to do things that I had the capacity and the ability to do, and try to create momentum when we didn't get a big seed gift or anything like that. So it was very grassroots, very much like, okay, we get money. Okay, how do we maximize that money and turn it into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing to kind of get that snowball effect so that we could help more people and grow our revenue and more importantly, grow our programs.
You brought up momentum, and that was one of the questions I wanted to ask about how you kind of decide, or what strategies you contemplate to create that momentum or seize upon the momentum. So, what were some of those early decisions or strategies that created the momentum that you just talked about?
I really just gonna take a second and kind of think back. I can think of some really pivotal moments. And one of the biggest things that I did was just really get involved in the community early.
Okay.
And so I was going to Chamber of Commerce events when I was 17 years old, taking public transportation to them, and doing meetings after school. And I got involved in the community early, and that created momentum.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of people, and I said, I'm going to go to every community event that isn't 21 or over required. I'm going to make sure that I'm there,
Right.
and really getting that grassroots community connection, and that created momentum. And community awareness, and contacts to really showcase, to really springboard us into what we were doing. Now, some of those relationships were things that have now been very, very supportive of us, or individuals have been very supportive of us, 10 years down the road. But because we had a relationship for many, many years built in trust and alignment and connection to the mission, those people have continued to stay on and support our work, and more importantly, support the individuals and families that we serve. So I think getting involved in the community created momentum, and then also looking at what works and doubling down on that. So if we had a strategy and it worked, I said, okay, what can we do more for what's working? And then also learning, okay, what's not working? Okay, let's immediately stop doing that, and
Mm.
really moving very quickly, and then investing back in the organization. I mean, I was a full-time volunteer, kind of unpaid team member from 2007 to 2014. And I would say that while that's not momentum, it allowed us to really invest a lot back into the mission. And I'm
I
grateful for
see.
that I had the opportunity to be able to do that at such a young age and live at home for free, which was nice.
Yeah, the benefits of still being a teenager while you're
Yes.
building a multi-million dollar organization to come, right? That's just amazing. I think what resonates with me is that concept of showing up, of engaging, of participating, of becoming known, and building relationships. I mean, you did that. You did that without much of a budget, but you just found those events, those activities to show up. You met people, you engaged, and I just think that that can't be replaced. You're not going to get very far if you're not out there, if you're hiding, if you will, in your office. So it's just such a good lesson to leaders out there about the importance of being known, being involved, being engaged, and being a productive member of the community.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so thank you. Grassroots fundraising often starts with those relationships and community trust. Like, how did you preserve that authenticity and connection while you kept growing larger and more sophisticated?
No, that's a great question. And I think it comes down to connection to the mission and always putting the mission first. The reason why, I'm sitting in my office here today is because of the individuals and families that we're honored to serve every single day of the year, who are part of our mission. And that's what our donors care about. They care about the people, they care about the impact. So I really believe that that's been able to happen as we've scaled and as we've evolved, and why, donors have stuck with us is because we communicate to them about our work. We're careful about when we ask. And when we do ask, we're very intentional and thoughtful in how we do that. And we really communicate impact on a regular basis. So we have a very robust kind of stewardship program that we've had for a long time. It's gotten better, and I'm sure it will continue to get better, and still has a long way to go. But it comes down to connecting donors to the work, and letting them know about what they made possible, and focusing less on the transaction and more on the relationship side of the impact that we're creating together, and making people really feel like they're partners in the work because they are. Chris, did that answer
Mhm.
your question?
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you. And I was just thinking about how difficult that transition must have been from volunteer, primarily engaged support, helping you get things done and work toward the mission, to then being in a position to actually hire or pay people to do specific tasks and professional roles. What was that? What was that transition like? Have you been able to find a good balance now between the volunteer activities and the staff work? How does that look now?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. We have about 350 volunteers who power our mission every single year, that invest their time into supporting our athletes and families. And we have about 20 full-time team members that work at our office here in Vancouver, Washington, that power our mission as well. So it's been a great evolution. We've really focused on durable growth. So continually adding staffing every single year, but doing that in a durable way to maintain program quality, but also investing back into growth. So for me, it's been a lot of, we hired our first employee besides me in 2014. Then we added another one and another one and another one, and it's been a really amazing journey to be able to build out the org chart, build out those functional areas. And frankly, we're still working on it. I mean, we have a long way to go for what our aspirations are. And I think that's one of the things that keeps me really excited, is that as our complexity grows, to your point earlier, as our complexity grows, as the ecosystem continues to evolve and new challenges present themselves, it makes it really fun to say that after 20 years, we're still finding new solutions to problems, and new problems are popping up. And it makes it very fun to be a part of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, um, I imagine that as you grow, you're continually finding, I don't know, what do they call it, chinks in the armor, or cracks in the in the watertight suit. I mean, I don't know. Bad analogies come one after another, but like, what are some of those tension points? What are some of those challenges that were really difficult or are today really difficult as you grow and expand? Where has the biggest difficulty been?
No, I think right. I'll give a present day. I'll give a present day example. So first of all, we've always been a philanthropically community supported organization. Up until this coming fiscal year, about 90% of our budget was community philanthropy, and about 10% was government dollars. So this coming year, we unfortunately lost all of our government support, which is about $360,000 of funding,
Wow.
which is about 10% of our budget approximately. So we're having to grow this year, just to make up the government support, but not actually materially grow our programs, which is much different for our team. We're used to being able to say, hey, if we add 10% revenue every year, our goal is to grow revenue by 20% every year. We're very very diligent and disciplined in that approach, which is aggressive for our organization, but it's something that we that's the bar we set for ourselves. But this year's a little bit different, where we have to reframe that picture to say, okay, we're actually not going to be materially able to, unless something significant comes in, we're not going to be materially able to grow programs this year, but we're going to be able to sustain our services and make sure the people that we serve are taken care of in the way that they deserve, and that our programs remain high quality despite the loss of government dollars. And then in future years, we'll be able to grow. So I share that because we're very
Great.
grateful for the position that we're in, but it is a new challenge for us, and that has been a challenge for our team this year. But we have an amazing team that care and are dedicated to the mission, and they're rising up to the occasion.
Yeah, yeah. What's the hardest thing that you do as a nonprofit leader? What gives you the greatest challenge or difficulty? Because there's just so many things that, as I think about the most difficult things, there's always fundraising, there's always staff management, retention, hiring, there's the surprises, growing programs, meeting the impact. I mean, there's all these things. What's the most challenging for you?
For me, it's when I have to, we make two different decisions. We make our business decisions, and then we make decisions for the mission. I believe you have to make both of them. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, what's most challenging is when when we have a huge need, we have a wait list for services, but I have to make the business decision because of the resources that we have. And that means that we can't serve the amount of people that need services and that we want to serve. That it would be the thing that rises up to the top for me. I feel pretty, there's a lot of other things. I feel pretty comfortable with that. I don't like to turn anyone away for services. That's really hard to do, and we work very, very hard not to do that. But we also know that when we're an organization that we don't charge anything for services, now we have no government services, so we have to make sure that our revenue matches the need that our revenue matches our program expenses. And so for me, it's just really hard, I guess, at the most basic
Yeah.
level, to turn someone down for services. That would be the one thing for me.
Yeah, yeah, those are hard decisions, impossibly hard decisions to make. So I totally get that. I would imagine that your type of organization, I mean, all nonprofits require a lot of effort and energy and time and commitment. Your organization being sort of now perpetually in startup mode because you're trying to really grow at extraordinary levels and facing challenges that were unexpected and all that. The issue of avoiding burnout among your volunteers and staff and yourself during this time of scaling has to be real. How have you sustained your energy, enthusiasm during this period? How have you managed to help your staff and volunteers do the same?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's really making sure that we have measured growth. That we're going through certain times are a sprint. Right now we're in a sprint, but then there are certain times where for certain teams that is a little bit slower, and then we're giving people a little bit of a break from that. We close our office down between Christmas and New Year's, which kind of gives our team a really nice wellness break. And then I usually will work in the office and kind of keep the year-end fundraising type things going. But I just share that as a small little example of things
Yeah.
like that, where we can really take care of our team. And then, for me, and I've learned this even more, the last couple of years, is just really focusing on personal health is so important. So just daily exercise, nutrition, all those different things contribute to high energy levels. And as a leader, we need to keep our energy high so that we can keep the pace of the organization going. So for me, that's been really helpful. And then honestly, I've been focused again this last couple of years on taking a little bit more time off than what I used to, so that I can continue to be recharged, re-energized, and just as excited about the mission, 20 years in, as I was the first day.
Yeah. Well, it's convicting what you just said about the exercise piece and eating well so that you have the energy to give to the effort. So thanks for that reminder. It's convicting because I was just thinking like, oh, I meant to do that walk yesterday and the exercise the day before, so it's a good reminder. And all of the leaders that listen to this need to be reminded of it and start following through. So thank you.
And I would just
Um,
add
yeah,
one thing to that is one of the mentors that I've had, and I don't remember who it was that spent some time, just said that the sign of a healthy organization is a healthy leader, and that's one piece of advice that's really stuck with me. Again, particularly more recently. And if the leader is healthy, the leader is engaged, then that usually means that the organization is too.
yeah. Thank you. No, that's great. That's great. Has there been a defining breakthrough moment for you with the organization where you kind of got a big boost or breakthrough to a new level? Like, is there a moment like that? Are there moments like that for you that you can draw on?
Absolutely. So in 2014, we received a multi-year grant to hire our then third employee, but second full-time employee. So a very pivotal position. Up until then, I was the CEO, the head of development, the head of programs, the CFO, and everything else. And that grant allowed us to hire a director of programs, who's now our VP of programs 12 years later, that allowed the programs to kind of come off of my responsibility. And she's done a great job leading that and taking our programs model to bigger and better than I ever could have. And then that allowed me to then free up my time and focus more on fundraising, growing revenue, which I would say, and then kind of leading the strategic side of the organization, which is my kind of main skill set. And that was the one biggest moment when I can think of, in the early years particularly, and there's been a couple of more recent inflection points as well that really changed the trajectory of our organization. And I can say without a doubt, without that gift, it was a 3-year, $50,000 a year gift for a total of $150,000 commitment from the family that supported that and knew we needed support. We would not be where we are today. We would be a much smaller organization. So I'm so grateful for that investment and belief in our work.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Um, It sounds as if your annual event has just grown by leaps and bounds and continues to have remarkable success, which is great. I mean, you obviously have had to freshen things up from time to time, but the consistency, predictability, I know helps as well to build that strong base that continues to grow. But when you think about the evolution of that auction, like what separates maybe a successful six-figure event from now a seven-figure event? Like what's the difference? You mentioned it was like sort of 250 and then it was a million. It's like, what's the difference between a 250,000 and $1 million event?
Major gifts. Um,
Yes. There you go. Do tell. Explain more for those
no,
that
absolutely. So just to unpack that a little bit, I I say that jokingly, but it truly is major gifts. But more importantly, it's the relationships with your donors. And a lot of donors do want to give through an event. I know many of us in the field, talk about the efficiency or lack of efficiency of event-based fundraising, and it's really about meeting your donors where they're at. And if donors want to give at an event, then we'll deliver that mechanism and that channel for them. And it's connecting them to the work, and it's doing the work in advance of the event. So it's saying, if Chris, if you're one of our supporters and donors, it's saying, Chris, would you give a $50,000 gift, and doing all of that work pre-event so that the event is the icing on the cake. And
right.
it's the mechanism in which people want to give, but we're not having any surprises. If we have a surprise, then ideally that's additional support to support our work, but we're very intentional doing pre-work, looking at who's attending, what we think they might give, kind of all of that data, and then having those genuine conversations with the donors so that we can reasonably expect what they might consider investing, and the donor is coming in thinking about the need that we have that we're trying to address.
That's great. That's great. Um, it's interesting too because a lot of the criticism about events is that the giving has to happen at the event and it's unpredictable. And if it doesn't happen, you can face severe shortages. But I imagine a lot of your giving had occurred before the event. It wasn't merely relying on raise the paddle at the event. And what's interesting about that is you basically solicited and secured a bunch of major gifts and used the event as a way to thank them or steward them or acknowledge them. And it wasn't actually sort of this special event fundraising. It was traditional major gifts, and you just got to honor them when they showed up at the party. So I like that approach a lot, and it changes the narrative a bit about your traditional raise the paddle event. Has storytelling been a major element of your growth as a leader or effectiveness as a fundraiser?
It absolutely has, and and I have to say, that's something I've actually been really working on honing that skill for myself and for our team, really the last 2 years. And historically, I'll say the first, I guess we just celebrated our 19th anniversary on May 5th, so earlier this month. For the first
Congrats, yeah.
17 years of our organization, we did a really good job of telling stories at our special events, at that auction that you were mentioning, at the two other auctions that we do as well, but we weren't really good about communicating those stories consistently and at scale. So over the last 2 years, we've really focused on talking less about, okay, this is how many interactions we delivered, all the different data points I won't go into, and more of this is the one story that really resonates, because at the end of the day, people give to people. And so I feel that we have a long way to go with that, and we can be better storytellers, but it absolutely has. And if I were to say what were some of my biggest learning lessons, which is not what you asked, but I'll add a little context there. It's that I
Great.
wish that we would have started storytelling better earlier, because I think it would have improved our fundraising efforts. But I'm grateful that we are now, and looking forward to continue to improve that in the years ahead.
Good, good. Thank you. And what has been your experience with the board in your fundraising initiatives?
Oh, first of all, we have an incredible board, and I'm grateful for their leadership and guidance. Particularly, many board members have been engaged since I was 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, and they have been close mentors to me. Many of them have taught me much of what I know today. So I have a deep relationship and appreciation for them. All of our board is very, very engaged in fundraising. I have a conversation with kind of each of them outside of the meeting, talking about how they can help. And we have a board agreement. We don't stipulate a minimum giving amount. We say it's commensurate with capacity and aligning with the individual's values. We just want to be one of the top philanthropic choices that they make each year. Um,
Beautiful.
and because we feel like that's a more inclusive way to do it. And what I find is that the board will give more if we don't set a number to it. And some people give more than others. That's okay. But then those other people that maybe don't give as much, they bring corporate support, or they introduce people that do. And we've had a lot of um, very strong success that way. So we have 100% participation in fundraising by the board. We have 100% giving by the board. And I would say we also have a culture of philanthropy, not just within our team, but within our board as well, where the board knows that we are a philanthropy driven organization. And for us to grow, philanthropy needs to grow, and we all play a part in that journey.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever felt like your ambition was getting in the way of mission, or have you had to think about making sure that your ambition was realistic? Tell me how you kind of balance ambition with your mission.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that that's a great question. So in our strategic plan, we have a section that says embracing our core values through action. And the first one is always putting our athletes first. And I say that because it's looking at every decision that we make. Are we putting the people that we serve first? And we never want to grow for growth's sake. We want to grow intentionally, and we want to grow based on high quality instead of high numbers. So we would rather serve fewer people, but really make a difference than we would to serve more people just to say that our numbers are higher. We want to change lives, and play a role alongside the individuals that we serve in doing that. So I would say we try to be very, very intentional about it. I would say particularly in the early years, I thought we could do a lot more than what we could do. My team would probably tell you much less so now, but in some cases still too, I think we can do more than what we can do, but we try to level set on that quickly and then adjust where necessary down to what the capacity that we do have is. But it was a lot of lesson learned, but all from the right spot of how do we grow the mission so we can impact more people.
Yeah, good. That's great. And in thinking about maybe some of those grassroots leaders who are a few years behind you, back in those days when you were working super hard to make it, to figure things out, to get to even the point where you are today, and wondering if you were ever going to be able to get there. Like, what advice would you give them? What practical steps would you suggest that they take?
I would say the number one thing is, and I can't say this enough, is to focus on the mission. And my advice for growth is very, very simple. If you do the right thing, you keep your mission front and center, and be very thoughtful about what you do and how you spend your time, you're going to be successful. So I would say okay, look at what, you kind of use that 80/20 principle. Look at what's driving, 80% of your revenue. Do more of that, do less of the other things. Um, and really stay continually focused on that and keep pushing to get better every day. So to say like, okay, if something doesn't work, okay, let's fail fast, let's try something else, and just keep trying things until it works, but really taking care of people, communicating well, taking care of people, and really keeping that mission, that front and center in everything that you do. And I believe if you do those things, you'll be very, very successful.
Good advice. Great advice. Keep the advice going. And this time, around leaders who feel maybe intimidated about fundraising or just uncomfortable in that process, maybe for a lack of knowledge, maybe for just a personality mismatch. I don't know. There's 1,000 reasons why someone would be uncomfortable with fundraising, right? But what can you tell them? What can you offer them? How would you encourage them?
I would say, really envision what you're trying to achieve, and showing that to the donor. And if you truly believe in what you're doing, that's why it's so important in mission-based work to believe in your mission, not just to be there, but to really believe in the mission. And if you believe in the mission, it's so much easier to ask someone to believe in the mission and work alongside you to achieve what you're setting out for. So I would say, that belief in the mission, get the donor really, really excited, and then don't be afraid to share what your need is, because donors want to help, but they need, a conference I went to one time said, donors give when they're asked and shown how. And I think that that's so important, for us to remember as fundraisers, that like they don't know what we're thinking, they don't know what our needs are. So, practicing and just being able to articulate what the need is, and having a real honest conversation with the donor, and donors, I believe, will support an organization for what they need, if you show why that need is important.
Good. And as you reflect on the growth journey that you've experienced at your organization, what leadership lessons matter most now that perhaps you didn't fully appreciate earlier in your career?
I'm gonna just take a second and look at that. I think, for me, it's that ability to bounce back, because we don't all have a perfect day. I can tell you, while we've been very grateful to, grow to, $3.5 million in revenue, those haven't all been perfect days. And I think my biggest piece of leadership advice, that I've really learned over time is when you're the founder, you can take things personal sometimes. When a donor doesn't give, or they downgrade support, or whatever that matter might be. But what I've learned is that ability to bounce back, that ability to have an abundance mindset to say, okay, if this one donor can't support for whatever personal reason on their end, It's not an indication of the organization. There's another donor out there that can. And I've learned that the quicker I bounce back from that, the better the organization does. So I've learned just to say, hey, if I need to take a walk around the block, great, I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to get out there and hit the phones and make those calls to make sure that the organization is advancing. And then the faster that happens, the faster we then have an opportunity to achieve the program growth that we're looking for.
Perfect. So Billy, before we close, love to ask just a few shorter leadership reflection questions.
Absolutely.
So let's start with one leadership habit that has consistently helped you succeed.
Looking at our long-term vision on almost a daily basis so we can stay focused on what we're doing in the short term, translating into what's happening long term.
Very good. What's one fundraising myth you wish nonprofit leaders would stop believing?
Don't be afraid to ask your donors for uncomfortable amounts and asking for what you truly need. Don't under ask when you have a bigger need.
Okay, I love that. What's one quality you believe every great nonprofit leader must develop?
Humility.
Oh, good. And last but not least, what keeps you hopeful and motivated about the future of mission-driven work?
I would say it's the amazing resilience of the nonprofit sector, for not just recently, but, over the last 20 years, that ability to bounce back from setbacks and the ability to stay focused on the mission despite the external circumstances.
Beautiful. Well, Billy, for nonprofit leaders listening today who are trying to build something meaningfully wonderful like you've built, especially with limited resources, small teams, big dreams, that kind of thing, I'd love to just sort of ask you this. What encouragement would you leave them with?
I would say you can do anything, and don't put a limit on yourself on what's truly possible. Raise that lid and dream big.
Raise that lid and dream big. That's a good bumper sticker. I like that a lot. That is a good bumper sticker. Well, gosh, thank you, Billy, for sharing your leadership journey, your wisdom, and all of these just practical lessons that come from building something really extraordinary from the ground up. I mean, from the ground up, which is just not often true. Like normally there's, oh, well, I took this and built upon it. But yours was absolutely ground up, which I love. And I think one of the most powerful takeaways from today's conversation is that transformational growth doesn't happen overnight. It's built through relationships, consistency, trust, vision. And leaders like you are willing to keep showing up over and over again for the mission and the people they serve, and maintaining that focus on the mission, on the vision constantly. So for those listening, whether your organization is currently hosting a bake sale or building towards something much larger, today's conversation is certainly a reminder that scale is possible when leadership, mission, community, and stewardship align. Want to just thank you, Billy, for being our expert voice in this journey with our audience today. So grateful personally to have learned from you so many good takeaways. To our audience, thank you for joining on this episode of Lead for Good. Don't forget to also check out our other two podcasts, Mastering Fundraising and The Nonprofit Edge. And if you liked this content, please do like and subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. And until next time, as my reminder is always the same, please keep leading for good. Thanks all.
Thank you for joining us for this most recent episode of Lead for Good. Our passion is helping nonprofit leaders reach their full potential as leaders, and we sincerely hope this episode has been edifying for you. Please subscribe to this podcast to not miss any of our Lead for Good conversations. We welcome your feedback, suggestions, and comments via email at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Lead for Good is a production of Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership. Please visit us on the web at www.fulcrumleader.com. Until next time, we wish you all the best and encourage you to always lead for good.